Okay, welcome to the New Jersey Environmental Fundraisers Gathering. And we have two guests today, Hamna and Danielle. And we'd love to open up the floor with some conversation about how you put together your grant, as you are both winners of the Grant Writing Professional Associations and GrantStation's grant contest. Hamna, if you'd like to go first, feel free.
All right, I'll help in. So my name is Hamna Khuld, and I am the grant writer at Oasis, a haven for women and children located in Paterson, New Jersey. And the grant that we applied for was the a 4-hour ESL program, where we provide English as second language classes for while the women are getting their education. We also have in-house childcare, so mothers can just leave their children with us. We have trained staff, so the kids are getting their early preschool education, while mothers are getting their second English language courses. Putting together that whole application was somewhat challenging because we do have a large population of immigrants, and it's an extremely diverse group within Paterson, and the need is extreme. We have seen a lot of new immigrants coming in, and just knowing that there was such a huge need was what propelled us to apply.
Thank you, Hamna. Danielle.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm with the Denver Health Foundation. So we are the fundraising arm for an anchor institution and safety net here in Denver. Our patient base is 90% Medicare, Medicaid uninsured. And the application that I submitted was for infant mental health, which is really an approach to ensuring in the delivery room and in postpartum that family needs are addressed after delivery.
Wow. Both really amazing programs there you both have. How did you decide to choose the program you wrote about, Danielle? So many.
Sure, great question. I think this work really addresses the social determinants of health in a way that, certainly appealed to the funder we had outreached, which is the Caring for Denver Foundation. And they are actually funded under a tax initiative that was passed to give funds towards substance misuse and mental health services. I think my interest in putting this towards GrantStation was really just the idea of a robust proposal that, starts from birth, but has the opportunity to impact several generations.
That's awesome. How about you, Hamna?
Yeah, so of course, like I said before, our need, we saw it within our community. We had a lot of new immigrants coming in. And in addition to that, we saw that a lot of parents, they were putting their children to school and they were having that huge language barrier. They were unable to communicate or navigate the community that they were in. It was a whole new setting for many of them. So providing them those critical English language services was something that was extremely needed because it was not just for the parents to navigate, but also helping their kids with homework, helping kids get to the doctor, communicating with the teachers. So it was all well-rounded overall. And also by providing the English language services, it would essentially allow these women to finish their English language courses, get opportunity to get a GED, and then possibly obtaining a well-paying job, so that economic self-sufficiency was the main target that we are trying to achieve. So it has like that ripple effect that we are trying to achieve.
That's awesome. Thank you for both sharing that information. So when you're working with your nonprofit, how did you guys work to put this together? What was your experience like as a team? Hamna, go for it.
Yes, of course. So my way of working is I always bring my RFP to the program personnel, and I sit down with them to brainstorm what would be the most appropriate program to apply for. because of course I'm working more in the admin side, and I rather hear it from them what they're seeing more boots on the ground, and they tell me all the different needs that they are seeing within our community, within our the women are coming in, what they're lacking, and from there on we try to address them with our programming. So with this RFP in general, it was a government grant. And I brought it over to the personnel staff. We sat down and we went through all our programs that we have, and then we pinpointed that adult education for ESL is what we need, and how can we pair it? We can offer them citizenship as well in-house, so they have a stepping stone, not just getting their English language, but also getting nationalized, allowing their children a better opportunity overall as well. So we kind of packaged it really nicely in that regard. And then of course, through the program staff, we also did the targeted outcomes, how we can evaluate the program, what are our overall goals going to be over the fiscal year, but also overall, maybe like the next 5 years or so.
Thank you. Danielle.
Sure. I think, there's a striking balance between organizational need and funder capacity, and really making sure that alignment is there. And I think in this case, we were hearing from our director of behavioral health that this is really what they wanted to push forth in order to move along a lot of other work that would help de-silo and jump across different departments. So similar to Hamna, really working with boots on the ground and hearing from the program teams, and really using my skill set as a nonprofit personnel to make sure that it can appeal to a foundation with this specific writing and whatnot. We are certainly so thankful for their work, and we don't expect them to be perfect grant writers. So making sure that we can add in that information, grammar, etc., as needed.
Awesome. And then the next question is, how did your nonprofit celebrate, Danielle?
Oh, great question. We were thankful to have the funds go towards our general safety net, which really impacts a lot of our highest need programs that are harder to just find grant funding for in general. So I think that was really excited to see some of that work directly affected. And then, certainly in alignment with our goals and how we want to put ourselves on the map nationally in terms of outreach. So it was certainly exciting. Thanks for asking.
And you, Hamna?
Yes. So it was during the pandemic, so we didn't really have a chance to celebrate. But of course, we did send out like a weekly communication. We had within the weekly communication, we added that we have won this prestigious opportunity. And it just kind of showed that on a national scale, what we were doing. And it gives like a chance for the program staff to see what they are doing has a greater impact overall. So it was not just my achievement, but an overall achievement for our program staff, but also for Oasis.
That's awesome. So who found the opportunity? Was it somebody on staff? Was it you? Was it someone else? Possibly a donor? Hamna, how about you? How did it come about?
For me, I actually stumbled upon it myself and just felt like, oh, let's give it a shot. Let's see. I do have a couple of proposals written up and let's apply. So I just picked the most appealing proposal I felt had the most concise language, which was more targeted, had a great statement of need, and was really personable. And just felt like it was the right proposal to put forward.
That's awesome. And you, Danielle?
Yeah, great response. I certainly echo all of that. Was thankful to already have something that was drafted and saw it through the GrantStation newsletter, which is bi-monthly, I would say. And so certainly applied through there. And I think too, just it's a great opportunity despite whether your lens is a local focus, statewide, national. I think it's a good audience to have reviews from outside of what could be a small circle. So that was great.
Very true. So let's talk a little about yourself. I know you introduced yourselves, but how long have you been a grant writer and in the industry? What are your thoughts on where we're going? And Hamna, let's start with you.
Of course. So for me, it's been about 4 years that I've been a grant writer, and I didn't really have any formal training before then. I just jumped into it as straight out of university. So, but going overall, I am seeing a couple of trends, especially with inflation, that I do tend to worry a little, like what's going to happen in terms of funding and what kind of funding we can overall apply for. So that's some worrisome part of it, but overall, I feel like we should be all right as grant writers going forward.
How about you, Danielle?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I mean, I was happy to see so far that Giving Tuesday has been such a strong impact at the national level. I don't know how the organizations represented on this call feel about it, but I think there are more opportunities to be had. People are more receptive to grants, I think, in a lot of cases. You know, I'm really excited to see how the concept of trust-based philanthropy can change the grant-making world. I think about, I work within the pre-award space, and I've been here for almost 3 years. And prior to that, I was in programs. So I'm really curious how that will change application, both formatting and reporting. And I really appreciate the funders that have switched to that, which are a few and far in between at present. You know, really curious too. I know the previous panel had someone on the call that had she had some experience with donor advised funds. And I'm really curious how we can all tap into that space as well as corporations more, since there's a lot of money on the table that we don't always have access to. So always curious for insight with this group there as well.
What do you love about your job, or maybe the sector? Hamna, how about you?
I love working with the program staff. I absolutely love seeing the women in our community center, seeing the little kids. So loving that interaction, even though I don't get to do it too much, but just sitting down with my program staff and hearing the outcomes that they're achieving, hearing the fantastic accomplishments that our women and children are making, just makes me feel really excited and happy, and seeing that the work that we are doing as grant writers is really paying off.
Awesome. Danielle, how about you?
Yeah, I think the work, I'm sure we all feel, speaks for itself in terms of what we do every day and the mission it impacts. I have been in nonprofits my whole career, so I certainly just feel such gratitude from having a job that I can see the direct impact, even though a lot of times it's not on the groundwork. It's really hearing that communication from the teams and seeing it in the reports. So really happy to be within the space, and I'm so intrigued always within the bigger scope to see how we all continue to evolve there.
And our last question here for the panel from the questioning, and then we'll hand it over to our participants here in the group. What is your favorite grant writing experience, Hamna?
My favorite would be applying for a grant, asking for not too much, but getting far more than we had anticipated. Of course, I'm sure it happens to a couple of us. Like there would be a funder who's really touched by our story and our mission and our vision, and they feel like they can contribute far more than what we had asked for.
That's great. May more come in like that. How about you, Danielle?
Yeah, what a dream scenario. I love that. You know, I have, as we kind of branch out in what we outreach, if it's not always local, I've learned that the bigger the ask, the more documentation and paperwork that goes into it. So I think that's been a really great learning experience over the last year, in recognizing that as grant writers, we don't all have that capacity to maybe set a number to the amount of grants we want to apply for, be it monthly, annually. I think it's really about the quality and quantity of the applications. And I just don't think that's emphasized enough. I think so often where this field is looked to as, bring in the revenue. And I think there's a lot that goes into it that's unaccounted for sometimes. And just not always having funders that have clear outlines of next steps. So you might hope for a site visit and it might turn into like a full secondhand application outside of, the submitted LOI, the submitted full application. So definitely some learning experiences there. And I'm excited to see how our team is receptive to that in the future.
Thank you. Would anybody from the New Jersey Environment Fundraisers Gathering like to ask our panelists a question? Feel free to ask away.
Hi, this is Donna from the Lake Apacon Foundation. How are you, ladies? Let me put my camera on. Hi. So my question to both of you are, can you just tell me roughly, do you feel that the bulk of the applications that you submit on behalf of your organizations, are they program specific? Or are you seeing the trend towards trying to apply for more operational, general operating costs? Thank you.
I'll get started. So for Oasis, I tend to apply more for programs. And even though majority of the applications, grants, they don't like program and they might not like the salaries part of it, I do apply for programs and go for program staffing costs, because without staff, we cannot have the program running. And of course, what I try to do is I try to get the funder on the phone and try to have that conversation if there's like a workaround, if possible, and just really bring in the need when talking to the funder.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, general operating is certainly the goal, but I think funders are becoming more adaptive to it. But I think at present, I still get so much more engagement when it is program specific.
Thank you, ladies.
Other questions people have?
I have so many questions. I don't even know where to begin. So we have a very, very small nonprofit organization with, of course, just like every other nonprofit organization, a hugely urgent mission that we just desperately need funding to support. And we've had mixed results with grant applications so far. We have someone new on staff who is relatively inexperienced, but very gung-ho about seeking new sources of grant funding, which is thrilling. But I just want to be able to also set parameters so that he doesn't get too discouraged, because I entered this field with the same idea, like, wow, if I just introduce myself and explain what we need, people will certainly want to fund it. So what guidelines would be appropriate for me to try to set goals for this new staffer and be realistic, and maybe give him some advice on where to start and how to spend his time in the most productive way, and still not temper that enthusiasm that he has?
I think it's really important, as fundraisers, we sometimes experience colleagues that see that the sky is the limit. And I think there is a great metric that you can have in place to make sure always that you can carry out the work that's being proposed. So I think really looking at your work's budget, the capacity of current program staff, and really going from there to see what needs need to be immediately funded if there is a way, versus, you know, having everything burning and needing all the money all at once, might help digest it a bit better. And then I think from there, you're really able to look at, you know, past grantees, current and hopeful funders. And then from there, really refining like what their buzzwords and mission statement and focus are, you know, specifically relative to what those exact needs are. I don't know if I'm beating a dead horse there, but I think there's amazing optimism there, but I think it's hard when, you know, not knowing like the scope and the organizational budget, like what is really an appropriate goal there.
Our organization's budget's about 500,000.
Okay.
Our scope is trying to plant about 1 million trees because we're losing 1 million due to an emerald ash borer, and we can plant on public land primarily. We do have a grant to plant some on private land, but I would love more of that. We did just submit a large grant application to a funder who seemed very interested and then didn't award us the grant. So now I'm kind of back to square one. But again, I just want to nurture this new development person and not let his or not contribute to his feeling discouraged when these grants come, or these grants applications come back with a no. We certainly follow up with the grantor and just see, you know, what it is that our grant application was lacking, or what, or if there's another grantor that they know of who might be more appropriate for that program.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we are doing the right things. I just want to make sure that, like, for instance, you mentioned earlier, like however many applications you submit a month or a year. I would love to even just be able to give him some guidelines about what we expect in that regard. And so we do have grantors who are year on year, very generous and consistent. And so, you know, when we would like to bring them up to another level if we could. And so we're developing those relationships, but also looking for new sources of funding as well. So do you have any advice about how I might guide him so that he doesn't get discouraged and our board doesn't have too many tremendous hopes for him that might not be realistic?
In terms of, you know, with an operating budget of that size, is that including the staff that would then plant the trees, or is that what's being requested as the funding for?
So if we did expand our efforts, we would need to expand our staff a little bit as well. We're using paid interns to do most of the really heavy lifting, if you will, literally heavy lifting. So the expense isn't enormous. But what we've found is that people are happy to pay for trees, but they're not happy to pay for deer protection or staff to put them in the ground, which I find shocking because the trees don't plant themselves, and a $1 per tree model isn't realistic. But I try to put staff in and supplies in with the ask along with the trees, and usually those line items just get crossed off.
Well, I think, I mean, it's important to know, I've heard like the cynical statistics around the likelihood that the amount of trees planted, like with B Corps, whatever you buy and X amount of trees planted, I've heard that most of them end up dying, just not having the maintenance and care for that. So I think that's a great outcome to inform people as to like why this is so different from, you know, the Alliance of B Corps and what they're doing for trees. And again, certainly don't have the data present there, so might require some back research. But
we have
do you have a data point as to when you hope to have all the trees planted? Okay.
No. We're planting about 10,000 a year right now.
Okay.
But 1 million is a lot.
Yeah.
And so we've just lost 1 million all at once due to a single invasive insect. And so if we keep planting at 10,000 a year, I mean, and we have about an 80% survival rate, which is enormous. So far, so good. Climate change, stay away. But at that rate, it's going to take a long, long time. We really don't have the time. I mean, speaking from a habitat, ecosystem collapse, climate change.
Are there any conservation organizations you haven't outreached in the area, or any groups that are doing similar work that you can outreach for partnership?
Yeah, that's one thing we really do focus on, and that's why we've been so successful so far, is just basically throwing up smoke signals and saying, please, please help us, everyone. So we've just been trying to work with everyone in our area to just do anything that they can. And we've been meeting them wherever, wherever they are able to. So if they can supply land and not supply trees or fencing or staff to help plant, we have been able to provide all of those things if needed. And we are encouraging partnerships as far as, working together for seeking out grant funding, which one of our partners in grant funding is on this call right now, which I really appreciate. But, I just, I feel like we have a good start, but, and now hiring on the staff member to help, I just want to try to set him up for success as well as I can.
I'm wondering, do you have like a education component to your when you're planting trees?
So one thing that we do is when we have a public planting and people come out, we do spend a lot of time explaining to the folks who are there. Quite often they're from a corporation or from a civic organization, scouting group, etc. And we do spend a lot of time talking to them about the importance of why we're doing what we're doing. And I think that's really useful because for one thing, so many private landowners here in our area also need to plant at home, and we're almost using it as a training opportunity to show them how to do it so they feel more comfortable doing that at home as well. But just trying to describe the really dire nature of the work, because we do have a lot of threatened and endangered species here who are relying on the forest to keep them alive. And so, the good that they're doing is real and tangible, and they take that good feeling home and hopefully spread the word about it. So I'm really hoping that some of those kinds of outreach initiatives begin to, make those connections for us as well.
Yes, of course. And I'm just brainstorming here. If you have like a local school district that you could like partner with, because they are potential government grants out there for education purposes. So if you want to partner up with maybe a school district and apply together with in terms of like an educational initiative. So the younger generation can learn about conservation and protecting the environment. That might be a way for you to allocate some of the cost. So, but that would be more in like the government grant sector as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome, of course. And I'm not sure what kind of softwares that you use for researching grants, but for Oasis, I use Instrumental, and it's really helpful in providing you categories of grants. So you just need to go into that portal. You do have to pay for it, but you can talk to them, and I believe they can give you like 14 days of free access. So you can just like hop onto that if possible and create your own queries, set up keywords. It's extremely helpful. So that might be a route that you can take.
We've been using Foundation Directory Online because they also have free days that you can use. Through the state library.
Yeah, I've used that in the past, but then I switched over.
Got it.
Yeah, so that might be helpful for you.
Thank you.
No problem. And I'm also thinking for the dollar per tree that you do, I'm wondering if You can add in some cost of like maintenance in there. So maybe like bulk up that $1 to maybe like $5 or so.
We're actually going on a model of about $7 because it takes a lot of money to be able to pay for the deer fencing primarily. So it's deer protection has to be a component here in central New Jersey. We have a huge deer overpopulation problem, and any plant we plant would be eaten immediately if we didn't cover it up. So the deer protection and the staff really drives up the cost of the planting. So we can't follow a $1 per tree model. Like you hear one tree planted and other grantors, you know, talking about how they want to follow that $1 tree model. And that's great for purchasing the trees. Mm-hmm. But we can't actually plant them and have them survive. To the earlier point, these need to survive. So all this planting won't do us any good if the trees don't live. In order to do that, we have to take a lot of time and plan where we're going to plant them, what type of tree we're going to plant, and then protect them from deer browse. So it's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I can definitely see. I mean, there's a lot of upkeep that needs to go with it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is Erica Kalachi. I'm the Assistant Development Director at the New Jersey Conservation Foundation. I want to thank you both for your time this afternoon, and Lauren, as always, for organizing these great sessions. I just wanted to highlight, Lauren, your question about how did you celebrate receiving these incredible, grants of support. And I just think that's such a great question. At least personally, we're just always on to the next thing. Like we rarely really take that beat to recognize and celebrate when something great happens. But I think the flip side is also important when things aren't going our way. We're not getting, a big grant that we put a lot of money into, to kind of have that like team commiseration moment, that it's not on one person's shoulders and, you can fight another day tomorrow. But I just think it's really important to recognize, especially the celebrating, but also in terms of like team building and, burnout. Recognizing, both sides of that coin, the good and the bad. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because all of these are true team efforts and the whole team feels it when it doesn't happen, but the development person feels it the most keenly, I'm afraid. But it really is just, it just happens that way. And so we just try to do better next time. Learn what the grantor was looking for, and it could just be that there just truly were so many great applications and just not enough money to go around.
Are there any other questions? Last chance to ask. Well, thank you, panelists. We really appreciate your time and your expertise, sharing with us your experiences. Again, congratulations. We're very excited for you, and we hope to hear more about your programs and how things come about in the following years.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. This has been really helpful.
Take care.